stopping by the sewing room today. I am Marie and this is Lucky of Historical Belle, and today I am going to show you how I made my dream early Regency dress. I've been wanting a big flowy white muslin gown for a while now, and last fall I finally had a reason to make one. A lot of times I don't know if there's ever a time where I make something just because I necessarily want to make it. I mean, everything I make, I want to make, but most of the time I want a reason or an event to wear it to. So I've had a few more Regency events come up in my life, and then also there was a War of 1812 homeschool day that happened at the place that I worked at, the Northeast Rhode History Center, where I was the director of education, and I have now moved jobs, and I'll see, my video timeline is very, very weird. So I'm now editing together videos that I made last fall, so there's like a 6-month delay. If you are more interested in seeing what I do in real time, you can become a member of the Historical Belle Society on my Patreon. The link is down in the description. And thank you so much to all of my Patreon supporters. It means so much to me that you are willing to support me financially, because that is so incredibly helpful because of the money and time that it takes to do these videos, and I absolutely love doing them, but they do take time and money. So I really appreciate all of the support that my Patreon supporters give me and encouragement for doing this, because I absolutely love doing this and being able to be a resource for people. So if you are able to become a member of the Historical Belle Society, please do. And Lucky is just so happy to have me home. I have been at so many events the last 2 months. That is one of the reasons why we have gone down to an every other video, why we have gone to a video every other week, is because I have not had time, and I have also started a new job. Still in the History Center, still in the museum field, but again, we'll get to that later, and you probably already saw it on my Instagram. So we don't have time for that now because I'm already talking for so long, and I'm not telling you about how I made my beautiful dream muslin gown. So I use Simplicity pattern S8941, which is one of the American Duchess patterns, and I also use that in conjunction with the American Duchess Guide to 18th Century Dressmaking, and it was very good. I really like this pattern. I love how versatile historical fashion is, and it was a little confusing. There were some parts where I actually had to read the instructions. I know. I'm not an expert in Regency dress. I've only made a few of them, but it seems like it's such a popular time period right now with, I mean, of course, always Jane Austen, but Bridgerton. This dress, you'll see how I styled it, made me kind of feel like one of the Bridgerton sisters. Of course, the first thing that I had to do was get fabric. I decided it had to be white muslin. The amount of times that Jane Austen references muslin fabric for, you know, like, oh, you have to have the finest muslins, it just made me think, like, it has to be a white muslin gown. That is what I want, and that is what I need, and that is what this fabric, that this dress is, that is what I need to have this dress made out of for it to be that iconic one that I'm trying to make in my mind, right? So that is what I did, and let me show you how that happened. It was not, there were some challenges that I ran into.
I really wanted a muslin for this dress because muslin was a very popular fabric at the end of the 18th century and the early 19th century. I finally found the muslin. They had moved it, but here we are. A lovely selection. I like these because they're like $2, $2.99, but they are also shorter. So I was going to have to buy more than these. So I think I'm probably going to go with the $5.99 one just because of price. This fabric would end up being my downfall because the pattern actually called for wider fabric, and I got medium width fabric, 45 inches instead of 60, but I didn't realize that at the time, and we will have to deal with that in approximately the next step of this video.
I don't think we have enough fabric, Lucky. Yeah, we don't have enough fabric. I realized too late that I got 45-inch wide fabric and the pattern calls for 60-inch wide fabric. And I was like, oh, well, that doesn't matter too much. Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I even got extra of this fabric, like a whole extra yard, because I thought, you know, like, gotta make sure I have enough. But no, I very, very much not having enough. Yeah, I'm not sure if I should just like go back and get the 60-inch fabric at Joann's, or if I should get more of the same fabric that I got and then just try to kind of piece it together. Right now I'm kind of the piece it together idea. Yeah, I'm just kind of frustrated because I wanted to get this started tonight, but yeah, I want to have it done for this weekend, and it's Wednesday night, so I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make this in 2 days, but I guess we'll find out. I guess I could start on part of it. Just what part and how. Piecing is period after all. This is just upsetting.
So because I actually wanted to get started on the dress and not waste an evening lamenting the fact that I didn't read the instructions, because I never read the instructions, I went ahead and I cut out the bodice pieces of the pattern because it didn't really matter for the bodice pieces what the width of the fabric was besides the layout of the pattern pieces. So I went ahead and I cut out the bodice pattern pieces and then started to put them together. So here is the front bodice pattern that I am now making a little channel to put these strings in because it is a gathered front, which I had never made something with a gathered bodice before. Not in this way, that where it has a little channel that then pulls on a string. I of course gathered something and then attached it to a waistband, but not with the little channel there. So that was fun and different and new for me. I also went ahead and finished some of the seams of the front there right as I was sewing the channel. Now for actually solving my fabric problem, I decided to go back to Joann's and buy more of the same fabric because that way it's the exact same weave, it's the exact same weight, and I just bought more of it to lay out the skirt patterns. Now the only problem is well, it's still not quite wide enough. So I'm going to have to put seams where the pattern did not necessarily call for seams, but that's okay. It will be okay. There will now be a seam in the center back and a seam in the center front, but I challenge you at the end of this to see if you can actually pick out that seam when everything is all gathered. It'll be very difficult, I'm sure. I sewed my two front skirt panels together, leaving a small opening in the front as there needs to be a little gap, which will help you get the dress on. And it's just basically how the pattern is laid out. So there's this little fun gap in the exact middle. Then I went ahead and tried to pin on my two bodice pieces. This was very confusing. I read these directions probably 20 times. Yes, I read the directions. I know. I needed to read the directions on this. The directions said to press under opening edges along stitching, to form narrow hem, tuck under raw edges to meet crease. So I sewed the panels on, the front panels on, backwards from what I would normally do. And then I folded them back over the right way like I normally would to create a small little casing that hides the raw edge, and that's where you're going to put the little drawstring to make your bodice gathered along the bottom. So while that was a little confusing, I hope seeing it visually here will help you if you are making a dress like this one. Now, of course, you have to trim your edges because you want to make sure that your drawstring is able to draw cleanly and doesn't get hung up on any raw edges you have there. So you trim those seams, especially here. And then it was time to put in my drawstring, and Lucky thought that this was a lot of fun. She loves drawstrings, apparently, because it's playtime, right, Lucky? She also likes video editing too, as you can hear, because I actually sit still for video editing, unlike I do when I'm sewing. To thread the drawstring through the casing, I attached the cord that I am using as my drawstring to a safety pin. So I took the end, knotted it, put a safety pin through it, through the knot that is, and then used the push-push-pull method to get it through the casings. So you kind of gather it up on the safety pin and then pull it through. Now here we do have a rare sighting of Yo-Yo and Lucky in the same room. It has been about 2 years of them living together, and they are slowly realizing that this is permanent and they might have to work things out. Anyway, here's the push-push-pull method with the safety pin and the drawstring. This is what I use when I have to get something through any type of channel, any cording or ribbon. Now, you do not want to just immediately cut off your drawstring because you don't want it to get it lost in the channel. So I left about 5 inches. That would be my ends. And then I secured the drawstrings just to one end, to the far end. So not the center, but the shoulder side of the outfit with just a few quick hand stitches because, yeah, machine stitching was going to create a weird line there. So, and then I went ahead and I assembled the back of my dress. So there were 3 pieces. There was a center back piece and then 2 side back pieces. And those went together very nice and easy. Then I needed to work on getting the back of the dress assembled. This was a very, very full skirt, and I actually made it even longer. As you can see here, I have more of a train in the back. Now on the pattern, it only uses the train for the robe that goes over it, kind of the jacket with the skirt, if you're looking at the picture on the front of the envelope. But I was not going to make the over jacket, I'm just making the dress, but I wanted the dress to have a train because that would have been popular in the 1790s and in the very, very, very early 1800s, like 1800, 1801, 1802. And I thought that would be fun. So I decided to put a train in and basically just use the skirt pattern for, it's the same skirt pattern but just with an added piece on, so I just taped it on and used it for my skirt. I did not gather this by hand, and I didn't do cartridge pleating because I wanted it to match the gathers on the front, which were just going to look gathered. They're not going to look like cartridge pleats. I just ran it through my sewing machine on the lowest tension setting and then was able to pull those threads to gather the fabric. And then I attached my skirt back to my bodice back, which I am doing right here, right sides together, which is kind of strange for this pattern because that is not how the bodice went together immediately, which really threw me for a loop. But Lucky is here to help. Do not worry. I then laid out the back of my dress and the front of my dress to attach them together. This went together pretty fast once I figured out the whole not having enough fabric situation, and then also how the front panels go together, because I stared at that for a good 30 minutes. There's no shame in it, you know? We're real here. We're real in this sewing room. This was an exciting point in this project, putting the back and front together, because then it started to look like a real dress, and it was about to be at that wearable state where I could actually try it on and see if it was fitting or if anything else needed to be done. So I went ahead and I sewed the 2 long side seams and then also across the shoulders so that I had a wearable dress, but it's not quite done yet. We still need to do the sleeves and the lining for the front of the dress. Ooh, and then we have to hem all of it too.
All right, I've gotten it to a wearable state, which means we're gonna try it on.
It has so much fabric. I knew it was going to be like voluminous in the skirt, but I somehow was not prepared for like that much. Ooh, in the back. Like, look at that. Look at that. All right. And then we're just going to adjust the gathers. Yeah, it's not super pretty tie, but that's okay. We're just trying on. Okay. Okay. Okie dokie. Looky. This is so cool. I love how flowy it is. So I put a train on the back of the dress. The pattern said to do it on like the robe, but I was like, but what if I want it on the dress? And I'm so excited that I did, because like I just like look at it. Look at it. I'm so happy. And then I like the gathers here, and like I can kind of like adjust and fidget with them until I get it like exactly like how I want it. Like you can barely even tell that there's a gap in the middle, and also you cannot tell that there is a seam up the middle of this or in the center back of this. Like, not really. Even if there is, it's not a problem. Oh my gosh. Alright, so there was a lot of the skirt. Like, just getting that skirt together was a lot. But now I just need to do the under bodice, like the interlining for the bodice front, and then put sleeves on it, give this thing a hem, and I have a dress. I then went to attach the interlining, which is basically like a little modesty panel under the gathered bodice. So it will overlap a little bit in the front and you will pin it in place. It attached a little weird, in my opinion. First, you would lay it flat on the bodice, and then I pinned it only where the unfinished edge of the front bodice pattern was, and then I stitched that with my machine. I then took it over to my ironing board and I pressed it flat, and that's when I decided I was going to do the rest by hand, because otherwise we were going to end up with a little bit of weird lines of machine stitching interrupting my pretty silhouette. So I folded under the raw edges, and then I decided to just do a quick running stitch across the line on the top, right where all three seams met, on the shoulder seam and on the side seam. Now we are at the final construction step, and that is putting together the sleeves. So these sleeves are 3/4 length sleeves. They just go to the elbow. You can see there is just a little curve as it goes over the elbow there. So you're going to have to pin just a wee bit on that side. The rest is cut on the fold, and then stitch up the one seam there. I have returned to my sewing machine, and Lucky is been very helpful for this project. This project has required a lot of very close supervision, as you can see here. Now that the sleeves are together, it is time to gather the top. So I just put one little line of stitching across the top at the loosest tension setting, and then pulled the gather thread to make it fit into the armhole. I then set my sleeves and I pinned them down, and then I took them back to my sewing machine to indeed sew them together. Are you ready for it? Here is the grand reveal! I am so happy with how this turns out. It feels like an early Regency dream. I've been calling this dress my early Regency dream dress, so this totally lived up to my fantasy of it, and thank you so much for watching. I am ready to star in the next remake of Pride and Prejudice and or Sense and Sensibility. If you happen to be a casting agent, let me know. And until next time, happy sewing.